If Shen Wenlang had known that Gao Tu would vanish from his life so suddenly, he would never have let him walk away that night in Hesse. But destiny has its own cruel way of playing with people. Months later, across the sprawling Jianghu metropolitan area Yi City, Su City, Zigang, and beyond, something extraordinary happened. Tens of thousands of advertising screens lit up at once, and on every single one of them appeared the same message. A missing person notice, not just for anyone, but for the chairman of HS Group himself. For the public, this was shocking. Shen Wenlang was a household name. Young, handsome, and an S-class alpha with extraordinary wealth, he was always portrayed as full of confidence and vigor. But in this video, his mask had slipped. His eyes were tired, his voice heavy with emotion. He wasn't making a business announcement. He wasn't advertising a product. He was pleading with an old friend who had vanished, begging him to reach out, telling him how deeply worried he was for his health and safety. It caused a national uproar. Some people mocked him. Why make such a fuss? Isn't it just a friend? Others were suspicious. Come on, no one spends hundreds of millions to find a casual friend. That's love. Whispers spread quickly. Reporters speculated endlessly. Netizens debated in every forum and comment section. But while the whole country was buzzing with rumors, the one person Wenlang was desperate to reach, Gao Tu, knew nothing at all. Because on that very night, after slipping out through the bathroom window of a restaurant, Gao Tu collapsed right outside. Luckily, fate intervened. He ran into Ma Heng, his old neighbor, the one person who had always quietly looked out for him. Ma Heng rushed him into his car, but within moments Gao Tu had fallen into a coma. The situation was dire. His body had been overwhelmed, his pheromone disorder spiraling completely out of control under the crushing weight of several alphas. Oppressive sense. By the time they reached the hospital, his pheromone glands had swollen to the size of a fist. The delicate skin at the back of his neck was stretched tight, blue veins pulsing dangerously. The sight alone made even seasoned doctors pale. In the emergency room, the smell of sage, his pheromone scent, was so strong it filled every corner of the space. Sage, normally a fragrance of vitality and strength, now poured out in excess, like the last desperate blaze of a candle before it burns out. Even Beta staff, usually immune, were affected, shifting uncomfortably, restless under the overwhelming pull of an Omega's despair. Two Omega doctors assisting in the procedure broke down in tears. They had seen many critical patients before, but rarely anything like this. Because Gao Tu wasn't just an Omega with a collapsed pheromone system. He was also pregnant. The medical team scrambled, but Yi City's facilities weren't enough. After hours of battling to stabilize him, the director of pheromone medicine made the decision. He had to be transferred immediately to the provincial capital's specialist hospital. Sirens wailed through the night as the ambulance sped toward Jinling. But halfway there, his condition worsened. The patient's blood pressure is dropping. Heart rhythm abnormal. Immediate action. Doctors fought to keep him alive, while his pheromone output weakened like a dying flame. By the time they reached Jinling, his life was hanging by a thread. Inside the provincial hospital, an emergency team was already prepared. Pheromone specialists and obstetricians worked side by side for 4 relentless hours. When the ordeal was finally over, Gao Tu's vital signs stabilized. But the doctors couldn't promise anything yet. He was still critical. The only surprising ray of hope was the child. Despite Gao Tu's body shutting down, despite repeated cardiac arrests, the tiny life inside him clung on stubbornly, refusing to let go. When Ma Heng saw him wheeled out of the emergency room, he almost didn't recognize him. The boy who had once been so full of quiet stubbornness now lay pale and fragile, his neck bound tightly with an off-white fixator to protect the surgical incision in his gland. His skin was drenched in sweat, his expression completely lifeless, and yet he was still breathing. Doctors explained grimly. To contain the overflow of pheromones, they had cut into his gland and implanted an artificial barrier. But recovery was uncertain. Without consistent soothing from a compatible alpha, his chances were slim. The head pheromone specialist emphasized this point. He doesn't need artificial pheromone supplements. He doesn't need drugs. What he needs is a real alpha. A living, breathing alpha who can stay by his side. The words struck like a hammer. But Gao Tu had never mentioned an alpha. None of his records showed a bond. Then Ma Heng did something unexpected. He stepped forward. "I'll do it. I'll be his donor." Tests had already been run earlier. His compatibility with Gao Tu was over 65% above the clinical threshold for soothing pheromone therapy. The doctors hesitated, but with Gao Tu unconscious and unable to give consent, his family had already agreed. The treatment would proceed under close supervision. Ma Heng had always been protective of Gao Tu, treating him almost like fragile glass. Now, he was being asked to literally pour a part of himself into the boy's broken body just to keep him alive. Meanwhile, Gao Tu's older sister rushed overnight to the hospital. When she finally arrived, she was furious and devastated all at once. But when she saw Ma Heng, her hardened expression softened slightly. He was the only one who hadn't abandoned her brother. "What did the doctors say?" she asked, voice trembling. Ma Heng forced a smile. "They say he'll get better. Don't worry. The little rabbit is strong." But inside he wasn't so sure. Because soothing therapy wasn't simple. It was an experimental clinical project. And though science explained it as pheromone compatibility, everyone knew it meant something more dangerous. When alpha and omega compatibility was above 50%, there was a natural pull, a subconscious bond. At 75% or higher, it often felt indistinguishable from love itself, and Ma Heng knew. Once he began this, once his pheromones mixed with Gao Tu's, it wouldn't just be about survival anymore. It would bind them, whether Gao Tu wanted it or not. Still, he stepped forward. Because to him, there was no other choice. Science may measure compatibility with numbers. But love, desire, and obsession, those have never fit neatly into data charts. 30 years ago, one powerful alpha even went so far as to forcibly modify an omega's genes, injecting his own pheromones just to claim him. That story ended in tragedy. But standing in that sterile hospital corridor, Gao Qing and Ma Heng both knew. For Gao Tu, this was the only chance left. Would soothing therapy save him? Would he even wake up? And more importantly, if he did, what would it mean for the tangled web of love, loyalty, and betrayal waiting for him outside those hospital doors? Only time would tell. If you were in Gao Tu's place, would you accept Ma Heng's pheromones to save your life? Or would you hold out for the alpha you loved, no matter the cost? Let me know what you think in the comments. And if you enjoyed this heartbreaking chapter, don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more stories just like this.